All right, welcome everybody to Agent Investor, the only brand that helps real estate agents get off the real estate roller coaster by selling real estate and investing in real estate. In fact, if you walk around the halls of my office, you will see that we have a saying, financial freedom through real estate sales and investing. And today I'm going to talk about what I consider to be the most important topic for every real estate agent, which is generating consistent seller appointments. In fact, when people argue that if the only skill you learned was how to generate seller opportunities on a consistent basis, you would need to know very little of anything else. Because if you're able to generate face-to-face seller appointments and you partner with our team or you work with somebody else, you can always have somebody else help you with everything else. So if you become a master at seller appointment generation, you will grow a great business. Now, I'm going to start out kind of with, something I'm surprised I even have to mention, which is the why. The why of why we need seller appointments. And I was actually planning on doing this session a few weeks ago, and I had nowhere in there to talk about the why of why we need seller appointments. But I realized over the past couple of weeks, now that I've been giving out seller appointments to agents, I've realized that there is definitely a lack of desire out there in the agent community to generate and to go on seller appointments. And the reason I know this is because I've been posting 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 seller appointments per week on my personal Facebook page, saying things like, I have a seller appointment in XYZ city, in XYZ state, who's available to take it? And I am shocked. I am blown away by how few agents actually reach out to me and say, hey, I'm interested in taking that appointment. There have been appointments that I have posted where I have gotten 0 responses. I have an appointment this day, this time, in this area. Who is available? And I've gotten, in some cases, no responses. Nobody reaching out to me, which is crazy because I have 8,000 followers on my personal Facebook page, and probably 7,000 of them are agents. Like I probably have 1,000 people that I would consider like in my personal sphere of influence. And then I've got a whole bunch of other real estate agents and real estate agent investors that follow me. And yes, I know that when I post something on my personal account, I can actually see how many people saw the post. And on average, when I post, I get about 1,000 views out of that, 8,000 followers. I get about 1,000 people that see the post, but I'm still blown away in general at how few people realize how good seller opportunities are in general. And if you want to learn more about how you can actually go on some of these seller appointments and what I'm talking about, if you don't know already, make sure that you jump on one of my weekly partnership calls by going to www.partnerwithagentinvestor.com. And if you're unaware on how you could potentially get seller appointments, if you're not clear on how you can work with us in the partnership way, just go to www.partnerwithagentinvestor.com. But one thing to note is that in order to see those posts, all that you need to do is follow me on my personal Facebook account at Tommy Caffarella, Tommy, and then my last name, Cafarella. All right, so I want to talk about the why. Why do we need seller appointments? And really, like, there's 2 components to this. There's the agent side, and then there's the investor side. And to me, they're connected. That's why I call it agent investor. I think they're the same thing. But in general, like, we're a real estate agent. I'm going to talk about the traditional part of the business, right? We're a real estate agent. We want to make money. We want to build a great business. Listings do that, right? So when you generate a seller appointment, what we found is that if you go in with a cash offer call to action, meaning that you're out there promoting and you're saying, hey, I'd love to make an offer on your home type of message, 8 out of 10 people are going to end up listing their homes, and 2 out of 10 are going to take a cash offer. So by generating seller appointments, you've got about an 80% chance that that's more of a listing opportunity, and maybe a 20% chance it's going to be more of a cash offer appointment. So generating seller appointments helps you get listings. Why are listings so important? Again, I feel like I shouldn't necessarily need to say this, but I just do want to say how much more impactful having a listing is than having a buyer for so many different reasons. And I'm just going to give some reasons off the top of my head. And some of you guys already know this, but I think it's very important that when you are waking up every day saying, how can I get more business? You want to wake up every day saying, how do I get more listing business? Now, I would never tell you if you work with buyers and you're having good success with buyers, I would never say don't turn away. I wouldn't say turn away buyers, but I would say when you are proactively going out there trying to generate opportunities, you are going to make a lot more money and have a lot better business if you're going after sellers than if you're going after buyers. So what are some of the problems with buyers compared to sellers? Well, hey, you go out and you meet with the buyer, right? And you sit down with them, they're excited to buy a property, and you sign a buyer agency agreement. The difference between the odds of that person transacting with you versus if you go into somebody's living room and they sign a listing agreement with you are much different. And if you've been an agent for long enough, you could get a buyer agreement, but that doesn't mean someone's going to buy a house. That maybe they buy a house next year. Maybe they never buy a house. Maybe they intend on buying one and they can't find one because there's not enough inventory. Or maybe you sign a buyer agreement and it takes you 2 years to find somebody a house. Now, again, compare that to if you're generating seller opportunities and you're getting listings instead. Well, with where the market has been in the past few years, if you have a listing at the right price, you're probably getting paid 60 days later. Okay. So again, we're talking about why generate seller appointments versus waking up and trying to generate buyers, right? The odds of you actually making money go way up if you have a listing. The second reason is the time that it takes. And if you haven't mapped out your time yet on how much time you spend working with a buyer versus how much time you spend working a listing, you should try it. You should do it. And many of you will probably know anecdotally that you spend a lot more time with buyers than you do with sellers. And that's just the way it works, right? Traveling all over the place to look at houses, especially when there's not a lot of inventory, and especially when buyers are getting outbid or they're not able to purchase a home, it takes a lot of time, right? Versus again, you get a listing and maybe you're having one bit, you could spend as little time as potentially having one big open house, negotiating a contract, and then just working the contract to close part, right? So your dollar per hour is much higher with the listing than it is working with the buyer, okay? The scalability is much different as well. When we're talking about like running a business, like what are we trying to achieve when we're running a business as a real estate agent, as an agent investor? We're running a business. What do we want in a business? We want to make money and we want to have the ability to not have to do everything within the transactions all the time. Now, I know some people out there want to be in control all the time, but in order to build a business versus like a job and just working a job as a real estate agent, you've got to leverage other people and you've got to get yourself out of some of the processes of running that business. It's harder to do as a buyer agent, right? You could generate a buyer opportunity and then try to hand that buyer opportunity off to somebody else. But now you've got to split that commission, right? So that's dipping into your commission. Buyer handoffs can often be pretty tricky. A lot of times when somebody that wants to work with you, they don't want to be handed off. And then again, it's just a lot more time. Compare that to a listing. Well, most listing agents, successful ones that have built out teams, they might go on that initial appointment. They may get that contract signed, and they may even potentially show up to the open house, although they might not. They may have a buyer team that works that open house. But other than that, in a lot of cases, they're having transaction coordinators work the rest of the time. and they're leveraging their own time in order to build a business. And it's like this, think about it like this. If you've leveraged out your listings and maybe you have an open house team or you have buyer agents that work your open houses, and then you have a really great transaction coordinator doing the contract to close, as somebody who takes and generates seller appointments, you're just like going out there, signing a contract, and maybe not really spending a whole lot more time, maybe only a few hours for the rest of the transaction. Again, comparing that to a buyer. Now, I could keep going, but I'm going to add just one more thing. With the recent NAR settlement, we don't know what the heck is going to happen to buyer agency commissions, right? But we do know this. If we think about in general, what's more at risk? Is it more at risk to potentially work with the buyer and hope that the seller is going to pay you? Or is it more risky to take a listing, right? In terms of getting paid? We'll all know that at the end of the day, it is much more risky to work with the buyer after this NAR settlement. And I'm not making predictions here because I don't know how this is going to work out. But I was involved in a transaction at my own brokerage recently where a buyer agent on the other side never got a buyer agreement. And they work with the buyer. And long story short, that buyer ended up not wanting to work with them because that person didn't have a buyer agency agreement. And they went out the next day, found another agent, and ended up transacting with them. Again, that type of stuff just doesn't really happen with listings. Now, I could go on and on about just, the why of the retail side. But here's the other thing. And even if they were completely equal, even if working with buyers and sellers were completely equal in every other way when it comes to a retail side of the business, you would be missing out on the flip side of the business by working with buyers. Because if we go back to what I mentioned a few minutes ago, when you generate a seller appointment, you have a 20% chance of doing a fix and flip because there's a 20% chance that the seller would prefer the convenience of working with a cash buyer, right? So here's the deal, right? Typically, if you're talking about my market, which is Greater Boston, if you generate a seller appointment and you take it as a listing, you might net somewhere roughly around $10,000. However, if you flip that property and you flip that property on your own, you're going to average probably making somewhere between 60 and 80 grand. Or if you partner with us, the average profit that we split is 40 grand. So you're talking about a delta of at least $30,000. Why is that important? Well, going back to what I call the agent investor model, by generating seller appointments and having some of them turn into flips that you can either do on your own or partner with us, you get these big chunks of income that you can then use to invest in real estate, whether it be down payments on properties or syndications, which then generates passive income, which is then going to get you out of the day-to-day, which is then going to get you into a great financial place, build your net worth, build your passive income, etc. And I think that's why most of the listeners who listen to my podcast are here. You want passive income, right? So I could go on and on about why you want seller appointments, but I would say this. If I was advising, I've got 4 kids, 11-year-old daughter, 8-year-old son, 7-year-old son, 4-year-old son. If one of them said to me today, Dad, I want to work for your company. I want to get into real estate. And I want to do it at an early age. I want to start at 18 or 20 or 22 or whatever. What should I do? I would say to them, you should spend all of your time generating seller appointments. That is what I would suggest. That is what I would work with them on, not comping properties, not figuring out how to work with buyers, not learning about real estate, but learning how to generate seller opportunities, because that is the golden key on how to succeed, not just as an agent in generating listings, but also in flipping, which then in turn leads to passive income. So again, if you were able to generate 1 or 2 or 3 seller appointments a week, it would completely change your business and your life because of everything that I just mentioned, right? So I'm not going to belabor this point anymore. I'm just going to assume that you agree with me, although I'm sure some people don't. But if you do agree with me, I want to talk more about the tactical of actually how to do it, right? Because if you don't agree with me by now that generating seller appointments is the most important thing you can do as an agent investor, then we're not going to probably see eye to eye here. But if you do agree with that, then it becomes, how do you actually do it? And the concept that I always talk about when it comes to generating seller appointments is, if you pay, for example, like on Facebook for advertising, it'll you're basically paying for the number of impressions or the number of people that actually see your message. So when we're talking about generating seller appointments, what I would track and measure, and the concept I would like everybody to think about, is how many impressions are you getting where people know that you're looking for a seller appointment. Now, the methods I'm going to talk about in a second, but the methods are almost irrelevant, because whether you're using social media, or whether you're mailing, or whether you're calling or texting or door knocking, or whatever you're doing to generate opportunities, whether you're networking in person, it comes down to how many impressions or how many people have seen your message, right? So then it becomes, if we know that and we understand that, then we'll be able to track how many impressions on a week-to-week basis we want to have. And then we have to determine what strategies we're going to use in order to get them. And let me define what I would call like an impression, right? So an impression doesn't mean that you have this lengthy conversation with somebody or an appointment. It just means how many attempts did you have to try to talk to somebody, to try to mail somebody, to try to text message somebody, to try to email somebody, to try to post on social media. So what I would define as an impression, and we're just talking high level here, all of these things I would say are one impression. One call is one impression. One text is one impression. One letter is one impression. One door hanger is one impression. If you post on social media and you use your account correctly, you'll be able to see how many people saw it. If 50 people saw it, that's 50 impressions. If you made 50 calls, that's 50 impressions. So all that I would be looking to do on a weekly basis, if I'm tracking and I'm saying generating seller appointments is the most important thing that I can be possibly doing, I want to make sure that I am trying to get as many impressions as possible based on the resources that I have. So most of I've got a pretty big marketing budget when it comes to finding sellers. I do a lot of things like Google pay-per-click, Facebook ads, mailer, stuff like that. So because my business is at a point where I can spend money, I can basically pay for impressions. Like I can pay for people to see. And that goes back to the resources that I talked about. Depending on who you are, how much money you have, how much money you want to invest, you may have to sweat equity impressions, or you may be able to pay for impressions, or you might be able to do a combination of the two, right? You might be able to send out 50 letters and make 50 phone calls. That's 100 impressions. So every week I would look to say, how many impressions do I have? And then I would try to get a ratio of how many seller appointments I've gotten. So with the impression model that I'm talking about, or the theory I'm talking about, I want to talk just about like the mistakes that people tend to make, especially when it comes to finding, flip opportunities. A lot of people think incorrectly or are told incorrectly that it is all about like research and data and like driving around looking for beat up houses. And I always, hammer this point home anytime I talk to anybody about finding deals or seller appointments. I'll say to somebody, they'll say, well, I have this property that I drive by every day that has a bad roof and it looks abandoned and blah, 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 blah. And, they tell me the whole song and dance, and I'll say, have you contacted them? No. So you have 0 impressions, right? So how do you get 1,000 impressions? Well, what's the quickest way to get 1,000 impressions? It is definitely not to drive around look up for beat up houses, do a bunch of research on a house, maybe skip trace the phone number, maybe door knock it, or maybe just talk about that property for the next 3 months. It is to actually do the activities to try and communicate with these people. And again, that can be a lot of variety of different ways. It can be social media, text, call, email. It can be phone. It can be mailers. It can be pay-per-click. It can be Facebook ads, whatever it is. But what you want to focus on is those impressions. Like how many people have seen my message in a month, billboards, whatever you're talking about doing. So when I'm thinking about that, the first thing I always think about is like, do you want to spend time or money? Okay. If we're talking about impressions, how do you want to spend it? Time or money? So, if you've got, $500-600 in a month, you can send out, 1,000 letters or 1,000 postcards. And that gets you a guaranteed, 1,000 impressions in a month. Right. And do the math on whether that's Facebook when you're boosting an ad and you're getting impressions there, or Google pay-per-click. You can see how many people looked at your ad or clicked on your ad, etc. You can track impressions that way. Or again, whether it be that you're forcing them through sweat equity. So the first thing I would always think about when it comes to generating seller appointments is like, am I going to invest any money? And when I started, me personally, I had no money to invest. So it wasn't really an option, for me to spend money. So I had to spend time. But I do want to mention that if you've got a marketing budget of potentially $1,000 or more per month, you might want to consider spending a little bit of money to do this. If you're not sure how you should spend your money, again, make sure you jump on my next agent partnership call and ask me these questions. It's a live call. You can do that at www.partnerwithagentinvestor.com. And it's live again, so it's interactive and it's free, so you can jump on it. And I do those calls because selfishly, I'll just put it out there. I'm averaging doing one agent partnership deal per week right now. I want to do 2. So I'm helping to teach and train agents on how to find deals, knowing that a certain percentage of those deals that get found are going to be funneled back to me. You can jump on those calls and you don't have to funnel any deals back to me if it doesn't make sense for you. But, if you do, I'd be, thankful and happy and all that good stuff. So again, getting back to time versus money, I talked a little bit about spending time. I'm spending money, and all of those metrics that I tracked on how you spend money, again, whether it's a billboard, whether it's a letter, whether it's Google pay-per-click, whether it's Facebook, all of those metrics are tracked via impressions. X amount of impressions is going to translate into an appointment. The good thing about spending money, there's pluses and minuses of spending marketing dollars. The plus is that you can just cut the check and the impressions basically automatically happen. The simple thing that I mentioned about having a billboard, which by the way, I don't recommend doing for most people, you're going to get metrics from the billboard companies on how many impressions that you're going to get on a weekly basis. And all you have to do is cut the check and you're going to get those impressions. So it's very automatic. And one very important thing about this when it comes to generating seller appointments is that you need consistency. So it's a lot easier to be consistent by spending money versus by spending time, right? Because if you put up a billboard, that billboard's up. It's very passive, right? When you spend money to generate seller opportunities, it's a very passive thing to do. However, again, the negative of it is you're spending money, which some people don't have, or some people don't have enough of, or some people just say, I'd rather sweat equity at first. So then it comes to, okay, if you don't want to spend money or you want to spend money and time, let's talk about how to generate this stuff via time. Now, if you're going to generate seller appointments via time, again, number one thing that you need to do is be consistent. Easier said than done. Consistency is a very rare skill in the business world. It's probably the most important skill there is. It's one of the most important skills in life is to be consistent. So you've got to figure out what strategy are you going to employ that you can be consistent with. For example, if you know that cold calling is going to make you into like a psych patient, And every single day you're going to be trembling and you're not going to be able to face your fears and you're going to spend all day putting it off and you're never going to really make any calls, like don't use that as a strategy. There are 1,000,001 ways to generate these types of seller appointments in a week. That what I would figure out is what is the strategy that, not that you're going to love, right? You're not going to love sweat equity and seller appointments, but which is the one that you're willing to do every day and you're able to do every day. And when I say every day, it should be most days, right? It should be 3 to 6 days a week. And I would say 3 is like the very low level mark that I might consider only if you're part-time. Like if you guys are in this business as an agent and you want to also flip homes and build wealth, every other thing that you're doing is going to pale in comparison to generating seller appointments. I know I mentioned that in the beginning at length, but like there can be no other excuse. Like you can't tell me you had to answer a damn email first. No, like your business and your net worth will grow based on how many seller opportunities that you generating a week. So anything else that you tell me you got busy with is literally just an excuse to avoid doing the hard work. And there's a book called Eat That Frog that I would recommend reading or listening to, but the summary is very simple, right? And the theory is this: if you have to eat a frog every day for the rest of your life, what's the best time to do it? And the answer is first thing in the morning. Why is eating a frog or doing their hardest thing first thing in the morning the best time to do it? Well, as we all know, the day gets away from us. And as we all know, if you just wake up, turn your phone off, shut your email off, and just do 1, 2, 3 hours of seller appointment work in a day, I guarantee you're going to figure out how to get the rest of your work for the day done. Versus if you do the opposite and you say, let me answer this email first, let me take this call first. Nothing in real estate is truly urgent, right? So this is the other problem that we deal with as agents. We think everything is urgent. We act like everything is urgent. The problem is the most urgent and important thing is not going to jump at you, meaning the seller appointment generation is never going to knock on your door and be like, hey, I need this now. I need this now. So you mentally have to put yourself in that mindset that I need to seller generate now. Okay. All right. So let's talk about the different ways to do it now that I've talked about the mindset. Again, you want to pick which of these is going to work for you. We already talked about how to spend money to do it. Now let's talk about spending time. Okay. Number one, as an option, is calling, right? So who would you call? You would call on the neighborhoods that you want to do deals in, that you want to list and flip houses in, right? So you want to use systems like a dialer, like a Mojo dialer or some sort of dialing system. You want to make sure you're doing it compliantly, and you want to make sure that you're doing it on a routine basis. Now, we've got scripts, and we actually train our inner circle members on a monthly basis on how to do this. If you guys are interested in learning more about how to actually do what I just said, go to www.partnerwithagentinvestor.com. I'll talk a little bit about it on the call, and then I'll talk a little bit about how you can get monthly training to do it. It's not super complicated, but you want to have a very simple script. My script is simple. Hey, I'm a home buyer that's looking to buy homes in your area. Would you ever consider selling your property at any point in the next year or 2 years or 3 years, right? They're either going to say yes or no, right? If they're not interested, no big deal. You've got thousands of records that you could call. If they say yes, you're going to go out there, you're going to get on that appointment, right? If you're interested in partnering with us, we will actually go on those appointments with you, right? So all that you need to do, getting back to like your most important skill, is learn how to generate. Cold calling in general, like it isn't fun, but it's also not hard. It's kind of just, brain damage type of work where you just spend the hour or 2 hours or 3 hours a day doing it. And you'll generate a couple, 2, 3, 4 appointments in a week if you're spending adequate time doing it and you're using a dialer and you're doing it compliantly and you're calling the right people. And that's just one way to do it. Like I said, calling is just one way to do it. There are people that focus most of their time in their real estate business making calls. You could be that personality, or you might say, I'll never do that. An alternative to that is to send text messages. And there are companies like Lead Sherpa, as an example, compliant text message company that will give you a program that will show you how to actually do that. You're going to do a similar thing that you do with calling as with text messaging. And it's just going to be like, hey, my name's Tom. I'm a home buyer in the area looking to make an offer on a house. Would you ever consider selling? And those programs are going to send out the messages. They're going to reply back. A lot of people are going to say no. A lot of people are going to swear at you or be mad at you. Okay, fine. And you're going to filter through, and you're going to obviously work and talk to the people that are interested, right? Somebody says yes, they're interested in hearing a cash offer. Okay, you pick up the phone, you give them a call. Getting back to the impressions, right? There's a certain amount of calls you can make in a day. There's a certain amount of texts you can send and respond to in a day. Neither of them are better or worse methods. They both have pros and cons, right? You get somebody on the phone, they can actually hear a nice voice on the other end. It's a real person. You probably can't make as many calls as send text messages, but text messages, might go to a spam filter, or somebody could get it and think it's a scam of some sort. So, there's no right way. It's more, what's your personality? What will you do every day? Another way to do it, to generate seller opportunities on a week-to-week basis, is either to door knock or leave door hangers. Why are door hangers important or good? Well, door hangers don't require you to even knock on the door, and they're better than sending a letter. So, I send a letter, it costs me 50, 60 cents. I walk around neighborhoods and leave door hangers. Well, the door hanger probably cost me, a penny each. I'm putting it on their door. They're absolutely seeing it. There's no way they can't see it if I put a door hanger on their door. And if they're interested, they're going to call my phone number. Again, how many impressions can you get? You walk around neighborhoods, you leave the door hanger, and if you're brave enough, you knock on the door. You don't have to necessarily always knock on the door or ring the doorbell. You can, but you can just leave door hangers as well. And those serve, to me, for every door hanger you leave on a door, that's probably like sending 3 to 5 letters. Because the reality is that if you leave a door hanger on the door, somebody's reading it. If you send a letter to somebody, are they going to read it? People sort their mail really, really quickly. All right, so what's another way to get seller appointments? Well, it's, social media and building your database and your SOI. So when it comes to social media, most people don't do a great job at it. I teach and train on how to do social media all the time. If you go to my Tommy Caffarella Facebook page, you'll see, like, I'm an average person. I have 8,000 followers. Am I Grant Cardone? Do I have 5 million followers? No. But 8,000 followers is probably more than the person that's listening to this right now. And I got 8,000 followers, not because I'm this super impressive person that people are dying to follow, but it's because every single day I send friend requests and Facebook messages to people. It's possible that if you're listening to this right now, you got a friend request and a Facebook message from me. Facebook allows you to send 20, 25, 30 of those in a day. I've been doing that for years, right? So 8,000 people don't necessarily, yes, I do get some followers from the podcast, and I do get followers here and there just because people like my content or know me or whatever. But the vast majority of people that follow me was because I basically, I reached out to them. They looked at my profile, they looked at my messaging that resonated with them, so they decided to follow me. Okay. You can do the same thing, right? So how do you generate seller appointments that way? Now, I'll just give you some simple examples, right? So if you know that you want to generate seller appointments in XYZ town, well, join a community page, join that community page and friend request and send messages to people, right? So the message that I send, to real estate agents is I tell them about my partner program, right? So that's what I do, on a daily basis. What could you do to somebody that lives in that certain community? Well, there's a million different messages you could send them. Or if you don't want to send them a message, it's okay. You could just friend request them on Facebook And you could build a database on your Facebook account of a ton of people in your community. So then, yeah, having the Facebook friends is great, but then, you need to consistently post and provide value. So again, if you kind of look and study like what I do with my social media account, you'll see like, yes, I post a lot of stuff about my family and stuff like that. Because I am a person. I'm not just, a robot that invests in real estate and has a brokerage and all that good stuff. But half the stuff that I post, or maybe even like 2/3 of it, is real estate related for me to get a result, right? So I host a podcast. I teach and train agents on how to invest in real estate, and I therefore get referrals for agents to partner with me for my partnership program. So I've built a funnel through social media by reaching out to people, growing the amount of people in my database, providing them with some value for free. And I know that, yeah, I'm going to give away a lot of value for free. Some people are going to like what I post or don't. And some people it's going to really resonate with, and they're going to have opportunities that we can work together on and make money together on. That's, how to do social media in 2024 and capitalize on it and make money and grow your SOI. So I know I've given you guys a lot, and generating seller appointments could easily be a training topic that I do a 3-day seminar on. I literally cannot teach you guys everything, that you need to know about generating seller opportunities like in a 45-minute podcast. But what I can tell you is a few things. First, if you are not waking up every day with the objective to generate a seller opportunity as an agent who wants to invest in real estate, you're making a mistake. You are not focused on the right things. That has to be your primary focus. You can do other things. It doesn't mean you don't do other things, but it needs to be your primary focus, number one. Number two, understand that by generating seller opportunities, you're going to grow a better retail business. You're going to get fix and flips that you can either do on your own or partner with us. That big chunks of income that you get from fixing and flipping is then going to be able to use for whatever you want, but hopefully be used for passive income. So again, getting back to the point of like, if you just seller appointment generate every day, you're going to build your wealth. You're going to build a great real estate business, and you're going to build passive income, whether you really like to or not, whether you know anything or not. I see this mistake made all the time. Agents think they need to know everything about everything. They want to go, down the rabbit hole on technicalities. That's not the way to make money, right? And listen, guys, I run this podcast for the primary purpose for me to grow my net worth, for you to grow your net worth, right? Not on the technicalities, not on the fine print, right? That stuff is great, but you've got to worry about seller generation. There's the saying, list to last, right? If you don't list, you're not going to last. If you list, you're not only going to last, but you're also going to generate passive income. That's the beauty of the agent investor model. So recognize the importance, do it every day, figure out what method makes the most sense for you. Jump on one of my partner calls to get some individual advice at www.partnerwithagentinvestor.com. Don't be shy about jumping on that call. Don't be shy about asking questions. If you listen to my podcast on a routine basis and you're like, wow, like I like what Tom had to say, well, you're going to like what I have to say a lot more when me and you are talking about your situation, right? It's great to listen in your car or drive around or be at the gym and listen to this, but the help that I can give you is more individual. That's where you're going to really get the most benefit. So again, jump on that call at www.partnerwithagentinvestor.com. Invest the time to get on that call. And then figure out, like I mentioned, which method are you going to use to get the impressions? Understand it's an impression business. One call is one impression, 20 calls is 20 impressions. One door hanger is one impression, 20 door hangers, 20 impressions. How can you get your impressions up? And once you figure out which strategy you're going to employ on a day-to-day basis, then go down that rabbit hole of learning as much as you can about it. Start by jumping on my weekly call, but then learn everything you can. Like if you're going to utilize social media to generate seller opportunities, learn everything that you can about it. Go down that rabbit hole, become an expert in it. Having said that, don't waste a ton of time trying to figure stuff out when I could probably give you a lot of these answers just by jumping on that call. So I hope to see more of you on my call. I appreciate you all, staying on and listening right now. There's much more to say, but I think I gave you guys a good baseline as to why seller appointments are important, how you might generate them. And to get more information, make sure you jump on that call, www.partnerwithagentinvestor.com.